It's been tough for the last couple months, really, to give any sort of a reasonable market update because everything has been so in flux. And, it's only Tuesday. You're going to be watching this episode probably when it comes out on Friday or over the weekend. And there's a lot going on this week. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the things that are happening this week and some things that maybe if you're watching this episode and you weren't paying too close of attention, maybe you should go back and look at to see how things really unfolded. But nonetheless, we're going to talk about what's going on. So look, the good news coming out of the weekend is it seems like we have a peace deal with Iran. Now, we've all heard this story before, right? And so it was widely expected that the market would open up here on Monday, and today's Tuesday as I'm recording this, and we would see some massive improvement in interest rates. But the reality is the deal's not signed yet. Matter of fact, not only is the deal not signed, we don't know the particulars as I sit here today of this deal. Even Congress is going, we don't know the particulars of this deal, and we should probably know about this peace deal with Iran. So a lot can still happen. It is widely expected that a deal will be signed this Friday, the day that you're watching this in Switzerland, between the U.S. and Iran to bring this, deal to a close, this war to a close. We are starting to see ships move through the Strait of Hormuz. That's expected to just accelerate, but we know we have months potentially of backlog of ships that are locked up there. And in the meantime, people have found alternative ways of getting some of their oil and, some new, like any, situation like this, people will find their own paths. So it'll be interesting if things return back to the way they were at the end of February before this conflict ever started. I suspect things will return to normal. The question is, how long is that going to take? The good news is, as I sit here today, the price of oil, a barrel of oil is already down to $75 a barrel. That's a pretty significant improvement from where we were, which at the peak, well over $100 a barrel, I think pushing 120. And we've been sitting in that, 90 to 100 range for quite some time. So to see this initial drop down to $75 a barrel this quickly is great news. Now, I believe that we were in the high 60s before this conflict started. So we're not back there yet. And I don't know if that's going to happen super quick. Part of what has to happen is we have to refill a lot of the oil reserves that have been depleted during this conflict. And so there is going to be a pretty strong demand for oil. And, basic economics tell us that could potentially keep the prices a little bit higher. So it's probably going to be a while until we see them back to engagement, pre-war levels here. Now, the 10-year this year has not moved a lot. We're sitting at 4.437 today. Again, I think that we're not going to see that move until this deal is inked. We've heard so many times from this administration that this war is concluding, that there is a ceasefire or whatnot, and then the next day bombing is going on, or we hear from Iran that, nope, there is no deal. We don't know what they're talking about, right? So this has been going on for months now. So let's hope that this is the real deal. And I think if it is, I think it's next week when you're going to start seeing real market movement. Now, a couple things are, taking off like a rocket, no pun intended, but SpaceX IPO was this week, and it's done very well, continuing to go up, which is not always the case with these IPOs, but it is with SpaceX, taking Elon Musk to be the first trillionaire. Did you miss that? Because it's literally everywhere on social media. So everyone knows about that. But what it's also done as of today, the Dow has hit a record high, soaring past 52,000 on the Dow. Now, surprisingly, though, the NASDAQ and the S&P both showing down a little bit as I record this podcast. So mixed news there. But I think with the optimism about this deal and oil prices coming down, the stock market overall has been enjoying some record gains.